Right.
So that you could get an idea of how big it is. Let's see. I got 5 minutes. Let's see if I can do this in 5 minutes.
All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mute you right now, and then I will start the countdown.
Alrighty.
welcome to another episode of ArtCo Drone Solutions. Let's welcome our guest, Jeff Sills. All right.
Nice to be here.
All right. Well, welcome to the show, Jeff. It's great to have you. It's always fantastic to see you on Ken's show. You do a bang up job on the news, and it's just wonderful. I got you live in Texas now. So are you a native of Texas?
Oh, I was born and raised in Texas. I was born in Fort Worth. We would only drive to Dallas if we really, really had to. And then I moved to Houston back in 2003. We got the job offer to end all job offers with Hewlett Packard, inviting me to come down and work for them and footing the bill for it. So I was like, yeah, sure, and been here ever since, never left.
Wonderful. So you grew up in Texas, so were you always a nerd in school?
I would say, yeah, I pretty much was a nerd. Once I discovered computers and electronics and stuff like that, I was hooked. I always had a knack for it. It's kind of hard to explain. My father, when he brought home the first computer that we bought, which was an Apple II Plus, he left it at the house and I disassembled it. And he came home and he kind of freaked out. And I was like, no, it's okay, because that makes the picture and that makes the keyboard work and that makes the little lights come on. And, I could figure it out. I'd never seen one before. So it's always been sort of just a passion of mine. And so anything electronic, from something as small as a, little action camera to, drones or whatever, I just love it.
Yeah, I love computers too. I took BASIC in high school, took it again in college. When I got after my time at Sinclair, when I got a real computer, which was an IBM XT clone, which was 8086. It was before the 286. And that's when I started doing upgrades and doing troubleshooting on computers there. So
we've been down the same path then, because the first PC I owned was an IBM 8086 with a Mathco processor. It was a whopping computer. I mean, that thing was, super fast for its time.
Yeah, what was it, like 4.77 gigahertz?
No, I don't even remember. All I remember was that anytime I wanted to use my computer, I had to pull out the magazine. I had to start typing in the code. I had to save it to the tape drive.
Oh.
I had to play it back from the tape drive, and then I could run my program. And that was the fun time.
This one had floppy drives. It had the 5 1/4 and the 3 1/2 inch floppy drives, and it had the old MFM hard drive.
Oh yes, good Lord, I remember those things.
It was tiny. I think it was 20 or 40 megabytes.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, those were the days, man. I mean, we grew up watching computers evolve, and so kids nowadays they see computers and iPads and everything else for what they are. They've pretty much gotten all the bugs worked out of them over the years, and people can just use them. Right. But back when we used computers, we had the frustration of nothing being standardized, nothing working together, having to constantly rethink everything. When you had DOS, you had to have a certain startup screen and a bat file to make your CD-ROM work. And I mean, just all sorts of crazy stuff that kids and people don't have to worry about nowadays.
Yeah, that's okay. Also, you had MFM hard drives and SCSI.
Oh, God, I love SCSI. I love SCSI drives. Those things were awesome.
Yeah, the first CD-ROM drives were SCSI. So you had to have a special card to put in the expansion slot to make it work. And
but you could chain them, you could stack them. It was great. So I was working at a computer store. One of my first jobs, we were working at this computer store, and the company had a policy that if anybody abandoned anything and they didn't pick it up for 30 days, then the employees could, take dibs on it. And so one day this guy comes in, and this was when the largest hard drive was maybe 500 megs. Okay. Yeah. And this guy comes in with this huge Seagate SCSI drive. It's like this tall. It's this huge giant brick, and it's 9 gigs.
Wow.
Right. And of course, nobody had ever seen a 9 gig drive, much less, heard of one. And it fell out of the back of a truck. And so we figured out that the manufacturer would warranty it, and they gave him a new hard drive, and they didn't ask for the old one back, and it sat in the back. And after 30 days, I asked my boss, hey, can I have that? Because I was going to take the platters out of it and make clocks, But no, I took it home, plugged it up. After fiddling with it for a minute, it worked. And I was the only kid on my block for years that had a 9 gig SCSI hard drive, It was great.
Wonderful. And then when the first Windows came out, I think it was Windows 3.11, and that was the first real graphic user interface out there. And
no. Macintosh beat them first, but Windows came second. Yeah, Mac got, well, technically Mac stole theirs. They stole theirs from Xerox, I think it was.
That's right.
But yeah. But oh man, I haven't talked about old computer stuff in a long time.
Right.
So, but so whereabouts are you at though? That's the thing. I mean,
I am here in Westminster, Colorado, which is a suburb of Denver, and which is the hometown of Lloyd Mendenhall, the grumpy vlogger.
Ah, okay. So Lloyd's in the same stomping ground. That's pretty cool. You guys get a chance to go fly together?
Well, no, he lives in Muskogee, Oklahoma right now, but he grew up here.
Okay. Well, you should hook up with him sometime. See if you guys can meet up. That'd make a great little video.
Mm-hmm. I did have Tim Herber. He came out here from Kansas, and we went up to Idaho Springs and flew up that Bridal Falls where the water is down below. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I remember that video. That was a great video. You did a good job on that.
Thank you. How did you get into drones? What was your first drone?
Actually, we're going to have to step back a bit farther than that. When I was about 13, one Christmas, my father got me a styrofoam Cox remote control plane, little Cessna. Oh, wow. Had a little 2-channel controller in the solid metal box that's absolutely square, and the joysticks were, the square, rigid sticks. And I flew that thing, I think, 4 times till I finally wrecked it. And I think of the 4 times that I actually flew it, once I got to pilot it myself, because every other time my dad was like, "Ooh, this is fun." But I had a passion for planes growing up as a kid. Right. I wanted to be a pilot, but unfortunately, I'm horribly colorblind. And so the military would not take me. And I tried, every other way I could think of. But eventually I just settled on simulators and goofing around with planes and learning, as much as I could about flight. And that was when I think the first time I ran across a drone was just a little toy drone. It would hover. It was a nightmare to try to control it. You spent most of the time bouncing it off of walls and, trying to kill your kids with it, etc. Yeah. And then I got my first stabilized drone, which was, again, still a toy, but it had a camera on it. And I spent a year trying to understand the physics of how the motors were balancing the drone and how to be able to position it and how to avoid obstacles and such. And we had gone out one Christmas to my uncle's place, and he had a Phantom 2.
Ooh,
that
nice.
he had access to. And that changed everything for me. The minute
Wow.
that I must have spent a full week every day charging that thing up and just flying it as much as I could, you know. And I loved it. It was so much fun
Yeah.
that I told myself I've got to get a GPS drone. So I started doing research. I started watching different YouTubers to learn what was a good drone, what was a good entry level drone, what was something I could start with. I watched Ken. That's where I was first exposed to Ken Heron, Billy Kyle, um, Ready Set Drone, all the guys that we admire now.
Yeah.
They helped me get the passion going, and so I started off with a Phantom 3, which is my beloved Goonie Bird,
Right. Mm-hmm.
and I've had this thing for 2 years, 2.5 years,
Right.
and I love it to death. I mean, I still fly it. It is one of my favorite little drones just to take up and fly, and it's always been dependable. But the reason I loved it was because it didn't have any of the funky sensors in it.
Yeah.
I had to fly it myself. I had to do my own obstacle avoidance, that kind of thing,
That's
and
right.
it was fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm.
I always wanted to get into the more advanced drones, but 5 kids, a wife with hobbies, a mortgage company with no sense of humor, bill companies that would call you at 2 a.m. just to see if you were still awake. Um, Pretty much capped the idea of me going and putting $1,400 down for a drone.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
I got a rare opportunity when Ken crashed his.
Right.
He had crashed his drone. He had given it away as part of a giveaway. I was doing the news for him at the time.
Right.
And one afternoon, he told me, "Hey, you remember that drone I crashed?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "The person that gave it away never claimed it."
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Do you want it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll take it." I was going to put it up on the wall back here, have it as a prop or something.
Right.
And it wasn't until once I got it, he had told me that it still flew, that I thought to myself, well, if the only thing's wrong with it is the camera,
Right.
rebuild it. So we talked back and forth and came up with the idea of doing the Heron Bird, video series where I would rebuild the drone.
Yeah, I
And
remember that.
people donated funds to
Yep.
the rebuild project. We got
I think
all the
I
funds that,
chipped in a few bucks.
yeah, the Heron Bird was completely crowdfunded, pretty much. But the reason that this thing was crowdfunded was because the people that invested in it loved this drone. They loved what it had done in its past.
Right.
Because if you go back to Kid's channel, pretty much all of the videos that Ken started doing with the Phantom 4 Pro were some of his best videos that he ever did. I mean,
Right.
on the back of the horse and, all the fantastic places that he got to fly that you can't fly anymore,
Yeah, that's
you
right.
know? So
Mm-hmm.
that drone there has probably one of the last drones to get to fly the, St. Louis Arch or the NASA rocket or
Mm-hmm.
any number of a dozen other places that Ken flew before they got restricted,
Right. Right.
So it has its own little special place in history for me, and that's the reason why that drone, I'll baby the daylights out of that thing and take very good care of it, because I think that drone is priceless to me. I've had people ask me if I'd sell it, and no,
Yeah. Hey,
not in the least.
Jeff, could you hold on a second? I want to say hi to a few people in the chat. We got Mike Roach Studio in the house, Curtis Dart, Ted 10, Wandering Marine Veteran, Whizbang 99, Coast to Coast Drones, which is Bill Thomas, and yeah, we got a good. Oh, Drone Shots is here. Fly Natural. We got a really good group here tonight.
Yeah, I
Awesome.
follow Coast to Coast Drones on Facebook. I love some of his posts. He's got some great stuff.
Yep, he does. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, in fact, I will give him credit there have been several news stories that were shared in the news that I got from his Facebook stream. So he
Nice.
can be proud that he got some of those scoops.
Okay.
So
So, what editing software do you use for your?
I use Corel Video Studio 12
Wow.
because I don't have $500 in a Adobe Photoshop account.
Right.
I got Corel Video Studio 12 for $59. The videos that I'm editing are just 1080p 60 frame
Right.
videos, so I don't need anything extreme. I just need something that I can align things with and
Right.
do the editing. So everything on my channel is done with Corel Video Studio, and I love it. I mean, it's a simple little program. It
Right.
doesn't, it's not too exotic,
Right.
you know.
Mm-hmm. Another one, the one that I use is Filmora, and
Okay.
uh, I got the version 8, and it works for what I want to work. And what I want to do now is I have another computer that's got Linux on it, and I've got a Linux version of video editing called OpenShot, and
Oh,
it's
okay.
got more features than Filmora. But I found out now I've got to download a rendering software for it. So that's going to be fun because it doesn't download the easy way because I got to do what's called an APP or PPA or whatever. So where you actually
That
got uh
they Linux gets to take you back to the way computers used to be.
right.
You have to do it all yourself. You have to put all the things together and kind of piece it together. I love Linux. It frustrates the hell out of me. Pardon my
Yeah.
French. But I love it to death. I just I don't get a chance to use it as often as I want to, because in my line of work, business wise and stuff like that, I'm pretty much using Windows all the time, so I've got to kind of stay standard to that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I've got probably 20 computers in this house. Um, everything from, I mean, they're just under the desk and in drawers and along the wall and sitting in the corner. I've got prototypes. I got one of a kind computers. I got some computers that are, I guess, from history. The first touch computers, that kind of stuff.
Wow.
But
Nice.
I'm a nerd.
Well, you sure are, Jeff. Well, you don't have the glasses with that little piece of tape and a pocket
No,
protector.
no. I'm much more relaxed nerd. So yeah.
Well, you would have liked me about 15 years ago going to the computer swap meets. And
Oh, God, man, I haven't been to a swap meet in decades. Those were so much fun.
oh yeah, that's where I would get a lot of my hardware for my computer builds because I would get like a 486 and I go, okay, what can I do to make this faster?
Uh huh.
So uh, I will get maybe a faster processor, more memory. I'd look for video cards, hard drives. Whatever I could afford, I would go uh, get something. And that's where I met this gentleman, Vern. He's my uh, computer buddy. He's really helped me out in a lot of jams where I just like, Vern, I'm stuck on this. What do I do? And he would just say, well, do this and blah 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 blah. And I go, oh, okay, did that, and it worked.
Yeah, I was always a Vern. Everybody was always coming to me with problems, and I would just,
Yeah,
oh yeah, do this and this and this, and it would fix it. My wife, bless her heart, can break a computer in ways that no man has ever seen have happened before, and she has on several occasions challenged even my knowledge of computers with some of the things that she's done to them. Um, but it just keeps me on my toes. I mean,
Yeah,
the reason I got into this industry, and actually any of these industries, is that because they change.
yeah. It's,
It's never the same. You are never bored.
mm,
If you wait a month, there's something new. There's something
mm,
better. There's something faster. There's something more uh, intelligent.
uh-huh.
Whatever you want to think of, and that's the draw for me. Is that it's this constant, learning curve. You never stop learning.
And it's
Um,
a lot of the new stuff is more user friendly too. You know, where
okay.
well, like back in the day, computers were like really hard to use, and now all you do is you got a Windows graphic user interface, and you got your icons to do this, to do that, and now the cell phone is rapidly taking over computers. So
Oh, good Lord. These things have gotten insane. I remember my first cell phone was a Panasonic Luggable, the little suitcase with the
oh,
magnetic phone that would stick off the side of it. I loved that phone. I'd have that wedged in between the seats in my 280ZX, and I was Mr. Cool because I could reach down and drag up my cabled phone on my head while I drove down the, yeah. That thing was ridiculous. I won that in a contest. I
yeah,
remember. Yeah, I got it for
nice,
free. But and then they went to handhelds, the flip phones. The
right.
ones that were and the Motorola, the big square block ones that
Yeah,
you
the
put on the
brick.
side of your head.
Yeah.
Yeah, my
Hmm.
mom had a brick. And then for me, it was God, what was it? It was a Windows PC phone. It was
Oh
the
yeah.
little Windows PC PDA, right?
Right.
And it was a
Oh yeah.
phone
Oh okay.
embedded into it. And the minute I saw it, I was like, I have to have it. And it was, some ridiculous price, but I bought one and loved it to death.
Right.
And then the first iPhone came out. I think it was probably about a year and a half, 2 years later,
Right.
and they changed the whole idea behind phones.
Hmm.
Now you have what Samsung, uh, Huawei, LG, Motorola.
Yep.
I mean, all these different companies making all these things, and the only thing that I have to get frustrated with is with like the Android phones.
Okay.
Is there's so many different operating systems,
Yeah.
and some will let you do certain things, some won't let you do certain
Right.
things, some have certain features, some don't have certain. I mean, I'm like, where's the standardization? It drives me nuts every time I get on
Well,
an Android phone.
well, it's because there's new versions that are coming out like almost weekly that makes the old ones uh, obsolete, and
Yeah,
sometimes the new one had doesn't have the options that the old one had that you liked, and it's like,
that's the reason why when I got invested in it, I went with the iPhones, because aside from a couple of changes, phones would eventually get too old, for
right,
updates, that kind of thing. But pretty much 90% of everything that I ever wanted the phone to do would continue working throughout the lifetime of the phone. Um, and the tease, of course, was whenever they brought out a new one to tease you whether or not you did you want to start it with your finger, or did you want to start it by just looking at your phone, or did you want it to have a crazy high definition screen that shows you every color that I can't see because I'm colorblind. You know, it's they just dangle carrots in front of you every year just to see if they can get you to go a little bit higher. And what are they up to now? $1,000 for one of their phones that they put out. I'm like,
yeah. Well, that was the reason why I didn't go towards the iPhone. It was just too flippin' expensive, so I went with the Samsung, and right now I'm on the J3, and I want to get the J7, which is the next one up from that. And I
yeah.
just can't afford what is the S10 that's out now. That's like 300 or $400. I'm like, on that's
Uh,
not gonna work for me. But
The only phone I think this year that caught my eye was, and I think it's Samsung that released it. It's the phone that if you bend it, you can pop it, and it becomes a tablet.
Okay.
But then you can fold it back in, and it's a phone. And I saw one of those, and I was like, okay, that's pretty impressive, a bendable phone.
But does it
Honestly,
have a
though,
knife or a spoon? How about nail clippers on it? They need to
for
make one like a Swiss Army phone or something.
Well, for the price they're charging for the things, it's ridiculous. I mean, that was like, I don't remember, it was like $1,000, $1,500 for that, or if not more. And it's technology that's untested. It's the first of its kind.
Right.
And I'm sitting there watching videos of them telling me that if they popped it open, it would break the middle of the phone, or that, people that were testing it, if they opened it the wrong way, which there's no instructions to tell you how to open it the right way, that it would snap. I mean, I was like, nah, I'll give that technology a couple of years to mature before I'll even think about investing in it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much the same thing that we do with everything, is that I never buy the new technology. I buy the new technology a year later after they've had time to prove that it's going to last, or that it's going to be resilient enough to get updates, etc. Because, there's people out there, the Phantom 4s, Phantom 4 came out and then boom, Phantom 4 Pro, so you wait.
Phantom 4 V2.
Yeah. And of course the V2 does
the Werner von Braun edition.
Oh, come on. That one was so cool because they upgraded it and put OcuSync on it. I was like, man, I was so mad. I wish mine did that, but And of course, I was foolish. I plugged it up to the app and just sat there and waited to see if it was going to update. And it never did. And I was like, all right. But then Ken called and told me that his updated, and I felt better. So
that's good. Well, I've got my Phantom 3 Advance, and then I have my Mavic Air. Love that drone because it's so portable, and it takes just as good videos as my Phantom 3 does. And they both have 4K cameras on it. And what else? And then I have my Tello drone, which is fun to fly around indoors when I'm bored. And unlike you, who's got the Iron Man edition.
Oh yeah, now the Marvel geek in me had to have the Iron Man edition.
But what I found out is that the old Tello app will work on the Iron Man drone, but the Iron Man app will not work on the regular Tello.
That, and also the Iron Man Tello version has 3 different programmable programs that you can use to program flights, and then tell the drone, hey, I want you to fly 5 feet that way and 10 feet that way, and go up and take a picture and come back the same route and land. And it's all either coding or putting blocks in place. And that right there is what it makes the Tello the best drone for schools, or for kids, or for people that want to learn. I mean, if you've never flown a drone before, and you're not quite ready to fork out $500 for a Phantom, 3, or $1,400 for a Mavic or a Phantom 4, go get a Tello for $99.
Yep.
And just learn how to fly it, program it, just have fun with it.
I just got one of these. I got this for my Tello.
Yeah, I don't have one of those yet. I got to get one.
Amazon, $35.
Yeah, I just haven't gotten around to it. There's actually a company that makes one that is colored to match the Iron Man one.
Cool.
a bit more expensive. It's like $60,
Oh
but it
my.
matches the Iron Man one. That's the one I want to save up for.
Right.
So I have
Cool.
sort of a matched pair.
Cool. So, and then, how did you meet Ken? What? How did that whole thing get going, where you got to be the newsman on his
Wow,
show?
that was different. So I had been watching his show and loved his videos. We were religiously watching his stuff anyway. And I liked his sense of humor, and so one afternoon I figured, what the heck, I'll collect a bunch of news stories and send it to him. And so I would email him each week a list of news stories and say, hey, here's some news stories that Dana can read. And so if you go back and look at the early shows when Dana was reading the news,
Mm-hmm.
that was my news. That was the news that I was, sending to him.
Okay.
And after a while, Dana was like, I don't want to do the news anymore. And so Ken said, hey, why don't we say if Jeff will do the news, And so they invited me on to do the news. I had been a guest on the show previous to that,
Right.
just talking about, oh God, that was the handmade signal enhancer that I had made out of cardboard. And you could put it on your Phantom, and
Oh
we made it
yeah.
from this.
Did you use
Yeah.
like reflective, like oh, that conductive tape or something that kind of?
No, it's just aluminum foil on this
Oh
on
yeah.
this on this
Okay.
form, but it has to be a certain curve. There
Right.
has to be
That's
a
right.
very specific curvature to it. And so this kid Carson, God, I
Oh,
can't remember his name.
Carson
Carson,
Miller.
yeah, he put out
Yeah,
a
I watch
video.
his stuff. What
Yeah, he put
happened
out
to
the
him?
video.
He kind of just fell off the
No,
track.
he's still making videos. I
Oh,
saw a video from him about a month back or so.
okay. I'll have
He's
to go
he got a
back.
better drone. He
Okay.
he he still has his Phantom 3, but he got a better drone, and he was showing
Yeah,
that
he
one off.
had
But
the Mavic.
yeah,
Yeah, he took
he
that
was
down.
another one.
He took that to Mexico with him on the family trip.
He was another one that convinced me to start with the Phantom 3 because I saw what he would do with it.
Right.
And JT to go was another one that I would watch.
Right.
But the reason that I would watch him is that he would fly a Phantom 3 like 7 miles
I.
and then fly it back. He had these like ridiculous ArtTech antennas, and he was trying all these different combinations and stuff. And he would do these huge, long endurance flights, from the place of business that he was working at. And I was always fascinated just watching a drone fly that far.
Right.
Now I can't watch those videos. I mean, I think the last one that I watched that literally had the hair standing up on the back of my neck was when Chris Rollins flew this one across a lake, and it didn't make it back, and he had to
Oh.
land it in his friend's yard on the opposite side of the lake, and then drive over and pick it up.
Oh man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one. I don't know how many times I'll sit there and watch YouTubers fly their drones, and you hear in the background that dee 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 dee, and you're like, please tell me that you are even remotely near where you took off.
Oh. Yeah.
And they're coming back, and and you can see the things down to like 3%, and the drone is just screaming at you because it wants to land because it knows what you're doing is the stupidest thing you could possibly do.
Mm.
And 99% of the time the person took off with the wind, and then they're fighting the wind back.
Right.
Just common sense stuff that you're sitting there going, please, not again.
Well, check out my video of me losing my drone.
Oh yes, I
Oh
have
God,
seen that.
the look on my face is just priceless. I'm like, I'm about ready to say some really bad stuff, and I know there's a camera right there, and I'm like, I can't believe that. I lost my flipping drone. You know,
I have
and it
only
wasn't
had one
that
instance.
it wasn't very far away. It was just I was around some trees, and I had a low battery warning, and then it said returning to home, and that's when hit a branch or something, and all I saw was the camera going like on the when Batman first starts. You know,
Yeah.
that's what it looked like, and then blank. I'm like,
Yeah, two lessons I learned really fast in flying my drones was one, never let my drone go back behind my head,
yeah,
right? Which was my first crash. Was I was flying the drone toward me and I let it go over my head, and I went to turn around, realizing that the drone just flew into the side of a tree. And then it then curved down through the air and sliced through my shoulder. But that's a whole nother story. That was the first lesson I learned. And the second lesson I learned was that if you fly to a point where it starts flickering, where the signal starts degrading, that's telling you don't go any farther.
Yeah, time to come back and get a stronger signal. Yeah.
So I flew my Phantom 3 just a bit one time, and sat there and watched the camera as the Phantom 3 was hovering in the air and wasn't responding, said that it was disconnected. And I'm sitting there thinking, how much battery time did I have before this disconnected? And so the only thing that went through my head was walk toward the drone.
Yeah.
Right. So I just started walking in the direction of the drone, and about 30, 40, 50 feet down the road, it reconnected, and I immediately brought the drone back and put it in my hand and, said to myself, okay, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh boy. Wow.
Yeah. But I mean, people like Ken, for instance, he does things with his drone, but he does things with his drone because I think, what was the statement that he made? If there's no risk, it's not worth doing it.
Yeah,
right. In other words, if, push the limits, get the best shot, get that wow video, do it safely. Right. But, don't be afraid to let the technology do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah. That's like when I flew up that waterfall. I went up there and I got as close as I could, right where the water comes over and above, so you could see the little stream coming down off the mountain and right over the edge. And I thought, oh, this looks so cool. And
I've got kids, so normally they only have to be quiet for about the 20 minutes that I'm doing the news, which getting kids to be quiet for 20 minutes is pretty easy. Getting kids to be quiet for an hour, that requires a lot more candy. So
the special kind of candy.
Oh yeah.
You've seen that video called Sleepy Kid.
Yeah. Come here, Johnny. Let's have some Jack Daniels together. This is going to taste really good.
Yeah. Here, breathe into this rag.
Oh yeah. Well, unfortunately, because I'm not ready to have child services visit my house, I don't do anything like that. I use the next best thing, which is the 70-inch color TV with Netflix. That pretty much guarantees that. Yeah, it's the new Jack Daniels.
Yeah.
So anyway, for your show this evening, I told you that one of the things we would do just for fun is a live news crawl, because as you guys know, when I do the news, I have an aggregator that goes out and it brings information to me from multiple sources. Greg Coonert helped set up some of the things that I have, and of course I take that information, I put it in a drone book. We then convert that over into the drone wiki, and then we cherry pick the best stories and we use them in the news. But never have I done just a live news crawl like, oh, I'm going to pull the aggregator up and let's just see what we got, So I figured for your show we would have some fun. We'll grab the aggregator real quick and see what we have. So, yep. So the first one I see in here is out of Perth, where they're talking about the shark spotting drone. Yeah, this is the one that made all of the history when they took the drone up and it had the life rings. on it, and they flew it over the kids, and they dropped the life rings. Well, they're using the same system now to watch for sharks off of the Perth beaches. And so they've moved.
They drop little pieces of meat next to the swimmers.
Yeah. Just they put the chum in the water to get the sharks, yeah. But apparently in this one, they moved the drones to Margaret River in Australia. And we're using the drones to make that beach safer because they had some shark sightings there. Let's see, what else do we have? Lots and lots of news about the flooding in all of the areas that had rain. So I've got lots and lots of these. But one of the interesting ones is the USS Batfish in Muskogee.
Right near where Lloyd lives.
Right, and he actually talked a little bit about this, but apparently the USS Batfish submarine is sitting, it's sitting out of the water, on its normal display. But photographs taken from a drone now show that it's in the water, and the water's right up to where it would be floating.
Right.
As to whether the submarine's actually floating or not, I have no idea. But that's got to be one of the more interesting ones. Is that I wonder what happens if it floats off. What do they do?
They
got to get it back before the waters recede. If not,
it's going down the Arkansas River. Yeah, we'll see you in St. Louis in a couple months.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for that 80-year-old woman, to call 911. Excuse me, there's a large gray submarine in my front yard. So, let's see what else. They've got some news where they've done some new drone footage around the Chernobyl exclusion zone.
Right.
VT's got an article out where they've taken some drones out and shot a lot of footage around some of the abandoned areas. Not necessarily Pripyat. I'm not saying that right.
Pripyat. Yeah, that's the way you say it.
Because Chernobyl, when that thing went off, there were other like small villages and things like that in the exclusion zone where the Russians just went and bulldozed the houses down instead of, leaving them. And so I'm pretty sure they've got like footage from those.
There's an amusement park there too that's still there, that's abandoned.
Oh yeah. What is it? Mr. Steele went to Chernobyl with his race drones and flew his race drones up through the radar installation there, and then he flew his race drone up through the Ferris wheel. Right. He actually crashed his drone on the top of the Ferris wheel. And wasn't sure how he was going to get it down because, of course, the whole thing's irradiated and it's all rusty and stuff like that. Some local Russian guy climbed to the top of the thing and got him his drone back. And it's in the video, of them introducing and meeting this guy who climbed to the top of that thing to get his drone. I thought
Vladimir, I climbed Ferris wheel.
Yeah, and he was chain smoking too. I mean, he was the Russian. Yeah. Now I noticed on Ozba Drone last night they breached the Baghdad issue with the drones. I guess they had called back people, because the embassy was right. They had seen a drone nearby, etc. But a lot of the reason why they acted like that wasn't because of the fact that it was just a drone there. The reason that they acted like that was because Saudi Arabia and other areas have been hit by drones, Iranian drones, and they were going after the oil lines. They were going after soft targets.
Oh, boy.
And so that whole area there has been, inundated with a lot of little drone attacks. And because of the high number of drone attacks coming into Saudi Arabia and the surrounding areas, Baghdad being a soft target,
right?
That was one of the reasons why the heightened sense of security. So, and in fact, they're still having drone attacks. They're still trying to go after the oil refineries and damage them. So, let's see, what else do we have? Now it's the DHS thing with China. Not gonna do that one. We got Zipline. Most of the rest of the stuff in here is pretty much been kind of hammered out. What's your impression on DJI putting in the Sense software to detect
Oh
airplanes and
yeah, the
helicopters.
the the ADSB. Is that what it's
Yeah,
called? Oh
yeah.
yeah,
What's your take on that?
oh man, I mean, if it could be spoofed, I mean, on one hand, it's a good tool to have so that other planes could be warned, hey, there's another plane. But on the other hand, it could be spoofed that, hey, this is a 747 when in fact it's just a little drone.
Yeah, well, so ADSB, like any technology, has the ability to be manipulated. In other
Yeah.
words, there's nefarious people out there. If they wanted to, they could probably hack it. And I know that I've heard rumors that it's pretty easy to go in there and just like magically make 1,000 planes, fly through an area when they're not really there.
Mm-hmm.
So I would imagine that there's probably going to be a lot of refinement for that
Mm.
system, for it to be used.
Right.
Um, but the way I look at it is this: I myself have been flying my drone in an area that is clear airspace, right? There's no restrictions. I'm not near an airport. It's just me in the air, and I'll be flying my drone, and I will hear a plane, and I will look, and I will try to figure out the direction that's coming from. And the minute I hear it, I got my hand on the down stick, and I'm bringing the drone down because I want myself below 100 feet, just
Right.
in case, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you many times that I've seen planes fly through the area that I was standing, and they'd be at 400 feet, 500 feet, sometimes lower. Um,
Wow.
Helicopters, the medevac helicopters,
Yeah,
the medical helicopters.
I've seen some videos that you had where the helicopter was like flying really low around you. Oh, was that the
Oh,
presidential motorcade or something?
yeah. Okay. So that was George Bush, and that was sort of interesting because, first of all, I knew that there was going to be crowds, right? So I knew
Mm-hmm.
I could not launch or fly my drone over a crowd,
Right.
and so before the Bush train came through, I sat there and was scouring maps of the area, trying to find a road that was like a dead end that led up to the tracks, that was away from everybody, that I could launch from, that I could go straight up and just shoot down on the train.
Right.
And I found a perfect spot right where the train had to slow down for a turn. It was going to be perfect. And so I go out, I used the Ken drone because I knew it was going to take great pictures. Um, and I put it up in the air. I had it hovering just over the tree line because I wasn't going to put it up too high for fear that, I don't know what sort of activities they have going on. So
Right.
I kept it right at the tree line so that I wasn't too high, and I was waiting patiently for the train. And the next thing I know, I hear this helicopter, and I mean, it sounded like something out of a movie set. I mean,
Right.
you could hear the blades, you could feel the thumping, right? And this
Wow.
thing came tearing over the top of the trees at 150, 175 feet, and he was moving fast, and it was a police helicopter, and they were flying circles. And the minute that I saw him, I had my drone, down on the ground, and I landed it, and I sat there and I just watched and I waited. And he flew orbits and circles, and they had a loudspeaker, and they were telling people to stand away from the tracks, and it was basic, safety measures that they were doing. And so there was no way I was going to interfere with any of the things that they had going on.
Right.
A couple of news helicopters came through, but they were like really high. They were, about 1,000 feet,
Right.
and they weren't coming any lower, and they were actually flying farther down the track. So
Right.
I knew that I didn't have to worry about them. I was just worried about that one low flying helicopter buzz over the place.
Right.
Well, I could hear the train off in the distance. And the minute that you heard the train siren, the police helicopter took off to the next spot where there
Right.
was a crossing, right? Because that's all they were doing, was they were just preparing the crossings before the train got there. So I knew at that point there's no helicopter. All the news helicopters are gone. I waited and I listened. It was clear. I put the drone up to the tree line. I popped over the tree line and I looked in every direction just to make sure,
Right.
because I wasn't going to take any chance or risk. And when I brought the drone around, I could see off in the distance about 6 other drones hovering out where you were not supposed to be flying, right? I mean, they were over the crowds and stuff like that. And I was like, man, okay, those guys are dorks. Yeah. But so I flew up and I waited patiently and I saw the train and I started following it. And at the time, I had a odd problem with the Heron Bird, because the Heron Bird, you have to understand, it's a crash drone. Yep. It has its own little, quirks.
Right.
And this one quirk that I had was that it would just stop recording whenever it felt like it. Yeah. And it turned out to be the memory card that I was using. Yeah. But so I was filming the train coming by, and I didn't notice that it stopped recording.
Oh boy.
And the train, kept coming by, and I kept following the train. And I will tell you right now that I have an Academy Award winning, Oscar winning shot of that train as it made that turn. And I followed that carriage that had the casket in it. Right.
Right.
I will tell you that it was an award winning shot. Nobody in the world will ever see it because it didn't record. But it was fabulous.
Oh, you didn't have like video cache on your tablet, maybe?
No, see, the thing was that I was using the phone. This was not long after.
Phone too, because I know mine does that, and that was one of the things that kind of drives me nuts. But on the good side, it's like, hey, I could just put this up on Facebook and say raw video of this, and that's what it is. And if you would have cleared your cache, you would have had that video. I mean, the quality might be depending on the card you got.
No, the thing was that the drone had only been fully repaired for maybe a couple of weeks or a month, before that train came through. I was still learning just how this worked. I mean, the Phantom 4 is light years more advanced than the Phantom 3, and it was a major learning curve just trying to understand what all the drone was doing. Mm-hmm. So I was lucky to get the footage that I did, right. But I'm getting better with it. It is an amazing drone, and if Ken, I know, has asked me multiple times, what is my go-to drone? And the Phantom 4 is my go-to drone. If I need to have something that's going to take perfect video right. and look beautiful, I will use the Phantom 4. But I've admitted that this little thing here is like my Red Ryder BB gun, because I love this thing just to have it with me.
Yep.
I mean, I take it everywhere just in case there's something worth filming.
Right.
Because you can set it up in 3 seconds and you're in the air. Mm-hmm. And so it's a split. If I'm gonna do something that I'm prepared for, the Phantom 4. If it's something that's ad hoc, right. off the cuff, mm-hmm. the Mavic will probably do it. And speaking of Mavics, I still have that project that you submitted to me to do. Yeah. And we did mm-hmm. get the Phantom 3 Professional that was donated.
Right.
And I have not had any time to sit down and work on the projects, because I've got your Mavic, which this is sort of a mock-up. Yep. This is the frame, and I've gone ahead and kind of assembled what it would look like. Right. And if you want to get an idea of scale, mm-hmm. It's a lot smaller or a lot bigger than the right. the Mavic is, but it's supposed to make a Phantom fold up.
Right.
And we want to see that happen. But the one that I've got ahead of you at the moment is this little fella.
Ah.
Yeah, this is Ken's drone from the New Jersey incident.
Oh, I see.
And yeah, we went ahead and snipped off the motor because we're replacing all of the connections. We've got a brand new motor, brand new LED, brand new body. We got new legs. We have all of the equipment that we need to reassemble this.
I noticed you said motor instead of engines. Because I
Yeah.
remember on your earlier projects, you kept calling them engines.
You know, it's the little whirly thing that makes the thing fly, you know? And I don't care. I'll call it an egg beater if I have to, just as long as everybody understands that I got another one of those things, whatever you want to call them. That cracked me up when I had somebody actually question me about that. It's a motor or is it an engine? Make up your mind. I'm like, it's both. So, but you know, if nobody has ever actually had the opportunity to work on one of these things, this is the most fantastically exciting thing to work on technologically. I mean, you sit there and you look at this frame and you're thinking this nice, solid, rigid frame.
It's sturdy too.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is that 90% of this is nothing. It's hollow.
Yep.
There is a brick right here that is pancaked all the way up to the top, and all of the components for this drone sit in this one little frame, and you essentially remove 4 screws and the whole thing just slides right out. I mean, DJI made this for nerds like me to work on. It is so easy to get into and work on.
Right.
And I love these drones. Fixing the first one was a huge learning curve. Right. And it made it a little bit easier for me to not be as nervous about working on this one. Right. And I know Ken is out there right now going, fix my drone. And I am working on it. The problem that I ran into is I decided to start working on the gimbal first.
Right.
Because in Ken's accident, the only thing holding on his gimbal was this gimbal motor.
Right.
When it hit the ground, this gimbal motor was the only thing that prevented the gimbal from just flying right off. And you can see right here, in this plaster, that it peeled it off.
Right.
It's not supposed to come off like that. This is supposed to be, like glued on or sealed on there, and it's supposed to stay on. And so that one little piece, when it snapped, is the one thing that prevented his gimbal from toppling to the ground and rolling all over the place.
Right.
The problem is that was the only thing that needed to be replaced on the gimbal. Okay, no problem. We got a new gimbal motor. I put it in. And when I started working on trying to manipulate the gimbal to make sure everything was going to work right, it didn't, because there's a little piece of metal that hangs over the side of this that the gimbal flex cable attaches to.
Right.
And the tolerance of that piece, it has to be right up against the gimbal. And if the tolerance is off, then it scrapes along the side of the bell housing and the gimbal won't work. Well, that metal piece is the piece that was taking all of the weight of the gimbal, and it's bent. So what I have to do is I have to bend it a little bit and then move, and then bend it a little bit and move, and bend it a little bit, move, and try to get it back to that perfect tolerance, so that it moves without scraping the side of the bell housing.
Now they don't have that part on eBay?
If I want to get that piece, I can't get that piece by itself. I have to buy that piece with a whole bunch of other crap that I don't need.
Figures, yeah.
And not, the other thing is that, Ken's already invested the funds in repairing this drone. He's already, invested the money in the parts that we have right now, because I've got the body and I've got all the wiring and stuff that I need for it. And I tend not to want to go back to Ken and say, hey, give me some more cash, So I'm going to work on trying to save him as much money as I can by fixing that one. But working on that one, like I said, fun. Working on this one, on the other hand, this was the opposite side of the fence. The only reason this thing flies is because I love it. If I didn't love it, I would never have fixed this thing, because the wiring inside of this is so compact.
Right.
And there is no room in this. Like the Phantom 4's got all that space. there's no space in this. Everything is all cramped and has its own little specific
Yeah.
channel. And if you don't have everything perfect, it's not going to work.
Yeah,
You
that's
know.
right. I remember
Um,
watching your videos on the repair and how everything was going fine, and you tested, and then the the board just went crapping.
oh God,
Oh,
yeah, that was
and it was
the most elated day and just complete downer of a day
yeah.
in less than a second
You're like,
because
yay! Oh,
I had gotten all the soldering done, right? Which
yeah.
that takes hours to do, and there's dozens of like these little micro-sized wires, and of course, then
Uh,
you have to, put everything in its place, and you have to get all the plugs right, and you have to get all the boards sandwiched together. You got to get all the screws tightened. You got to get all the wires lined up so that when the arms close, they don't grab the wires and squeeze them and pinch them.
right.
And I got all of that stuff put together and turned it on the first time, and it's on the video,
Yep.
and it came on and everything worked, and I was like, yay. And the first thing I wanted to do was I wanted to see it hover. That's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to turn the engines on and see it hover. And I thought, okay, I'll clear out space in the den, and I'll set it right here, and all I'm going to do is just bring it up about a foot and hover it and then land it and show everybody that it can fly. And turned it on, and I was like, that's
Oh,
a interesting smell.
yeah. Ozone. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
sign.
And then turned the power off and flipped it over and started sniffing it and realized that, yeah, I'd cooked off that board, and what basically had been the problem was, and I don't know
It
if you've
had
ever seen,
like a
but
hairline crack in it or something.
well, okay, so I keep all of the goodies from my builds
Right.
because I never know what I'm going to do with them. So, for instance, I still have, well, hang on, I still have the body for the first heron bird,
Right.
and I still have all of the pieces that went to the Mavic. So, like, I've got all the arms and legs and internal pieces and stuff that went to the Mavic. But one thing I kept was the body, and you can see
Yeah.
it was crushed.
Yeah.
I mean, the car that hit it drove over the front of this thing and just mashed the front of the drone and just completely compressed this. Well, that core board sits right there.
Wow.
Okay. And it pinched this top corner.
I see.
Now, normally there is a metal shield that goes over this to protect this from interference. And after we blew the board, I wanted to see what happened. So I peeled that off. That's the reason why it's not there anymore. And if you had a microscope, and I had a lot of patience and non-shaky hands, I could show you where the little microchip on here has the heat bloom, where it just basically cooked off.
Yeah.
And so this board, which is $180, $200, died because of one teeny tiny little chip. This obscure little chip you'd never think about took out the whole drone. So again, just an idea of how sensitive these things can be. And when I got a chance, Chris Rollins surprised me. He had done a video where he had his Mavic 2, and he was like, I'm going to do a comparison video of my Mavic 2 to my Mavic 1, but unfortunately I can't do that. And he holds up this, completely trashed Mavic Pro. And I was like, I want to fix that. That was the first thing that went through my mind. And I remember emailing him and I said, hey, I did this Ken Heron video and I'd really love to do your Mavic. And I didn't think he'd send it to me. I wasn't sure what he would think about something like that, but he really liked the idea and he sent me the drone, and it took me a lot longer to make that one work than it did the Phantom 4. The Mavic, I think, was about 6 months almost of work.
I bet if you did a Phantom 3, that would be a piece of cake for you.
I'm going to be doing a Phantom 3 when we rip that Phantom
Right.
Professional apart and put it in here. So I'll do that. What I want to do next, just because I think it would be fun to do, is I want to fix a spark. I
Cool.
I'm fascinated by the small form. It doesn't have all of the same electronics as the
Right.
Mavics and stuff does, so it's a little bit simpler in design. But the interesting thing about the Spark is that the logic to it is different.
Right.
You know, you can fly it without a controller, for instance, that kind of thing. Um, so I'm fascinated about finding one of those that's been wrecked, not water damaged, slam it
Yeah.
into a tree, crash it on a pavement, you know, bounce it down the side of a hill. I don't care. I don't. It can be mangled for all that matter. Just as long as I have parts to start with, I'll take anything, and I'll make a spark fly again.
Hear that, folks? If you have a broken spark, send it to Jeff Sills, and
Yeah, I'll take it, and I'll fund the money to put it back together and make a build video out of it and give credit to whoever sends it in,
there you go.
and
Uh,
help promote their channel as well.
Another place for broken drones of all kinds is good old eBay, and
Yeah,
I've
I've
fixed
actually
up.
found several broken sparks on there that I was tempted to buy, but just wasn't quite ready for it yet.
Yeah, I fixed several uh, Phantom 3 standards, and the only thing that was a headache for me was they'd say, "Oh yeah, this thing flies without a camera." They get the controller and it won't link up, and I'm like, "Oh, what?" I get a camera put on it, boom, it works. I'm like, okay, because I
Yeah,
had, uh, just drove me
well,
nuts.
we had the Phantom 3 that we used in the explosive video. If you guys
Right.
haven't seen it, I highly recommend going to Ken Heron's channel and checking out the video where we blow up a Phantom 3.
Mm.
Um, but that drone was donated by Jerry Calverley, right?
Right.
And so when he sent it to me, it had the remote, it had the drone, and it has the gimbal, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I was thinking, well, if I got a remote and a gimbal, I could probably find a wrecked Phantom 3 and make another Phantom 3 out of it. No, Jerry's already told me that he tried making this thing work and that the camera is non-functional.
Uh,
So,
uh,
if I ever decide that I want to build a Phantom 3 again, I'm going to have to work on this thing too.
well, you might be. It depends on what's broken on. I have replaced the main board on the gimbal, and I've gotten it to work. And or if that part's working, there's something wrong with the camera itself. I replace that and I put it together. Boop, worked.
Jerry said that he replaced a bunch of parts on it and also redid the flex cable, but was never able to get the gimbal to function. So it's one of those things that I'll put it on the back burner.
There you
It's
go.
it's not going to sit there forever as it is. I it's going to drive me nuts if I don't try to make it work at some point. Um, but for right now, it's not my priority. In
Uh,
fact, Jerry Calverley sent me his Phantom 4 that he's having a problem with. He can't get it to firmware update. It gets to 50% and it won't
wow.
continue. So I've got to work on that for him and try to get his firmware update applied for him.
Well, if you want, Jeff, I do have some Phantom 3 parts that you can have if you want. I even have a main board with the motors on them.
Oh, the motors. Okay. You don't
Motors.
have any engines? Okay.
No,
All right,
no
fine.
engine. But
So we talked about me for a bit, but I have a question for you, and this is driving me nuts. How did
okay.
you go from being a stand-up comedian to a fisherman drone pilot? How does that where in the process of your life did you sit there and think to yourself, I don't want to be on stage anymore. I want to fish and drone fly.
Well, that was one of the neat things that I found out about YouTube a couple years ago, I've had the original channel since '07, and I would just throw comedy videos, and I'd uh, throw in some DIY projects. I did a lot of guitar effects pedals where I would repair them and mod them, and I would
Yeah.
put the videos on that. And I always loved fishing. I've been fishing since I was, uh, in my preteens. And now with YouTube and the price of cameras coming down, I got a GoPro, and I thought, hey, I'll get this GoPro for 150 bucks. I got a GoPro Hero 3 Black, and it came with all the accessories. And I used the chest mount to get the really good footage. And then later on, I got some cheap knockoffs of GoPros by SJCAM,
Yeah.
and I got
The
back.
little.
Yeah, I got back into videography. Had a lot of fun with that. And then about 2 years ago, I got my first drone, which was the Buds 3 that didn't have GPS. And I flew that a few times, crashed it, and I go, oh, God, it's going to be one of those hobbies where, I just kind of suck at. And then when I got the Phantom 3, I go, wow, this is a piece of cake. And I started watching all these videos, and I go, I can make money doing this? Sure. I, I, I'll go get my Part 107 and, get my business up. I got my LLC now. All I have to do is get my website up. I want to make it look nice and professional, not like some junky high school kid did it. I want to make it look professional, and I'm trying to get some uh, photos that I could use to incorporate in there, and I got some videos that I could put in there to say, hey, I could do real estate, I could do construction, I could do this, that, and the other thing. I'm a jack of all trades with the drone. Hire me. Here's my number. And
That's the thing with doing the news. We're up to show 95 now,
wow,
and doing the news. I'm pulling every week somewhere in the nature of about 70 different news stories, 80 different news stories. The wiki probably gets 30, 40 of those, that go into them in drone book, because there's lots of duplicates, or there's stuff in
right?
there that is like, oh, this is
Yeah,
great news. But I've learned so much about the industry and where drones are going and what you can do with them. Uh, it's so fascinating that now getting a Part 107, which I want to get mine. I really, really want to get mine for a couple of reasons. There's a bunch of real estate agents in this area, and there's nobody flying drones. I mean, I've got the market cornered.
there you go.
So 107, I want that. But the other thing is that agriculture videos.
Yeah,
I've got an air conditioning guy that wants me to shoot video footage of the air conditioning installations that he does on commercial properties. I have people that want me to, take video footage of them, their boats or their RVs that they're trying to sell, or land that they have. I mean, there's so many different things that you can do now with a drone. I was driving into town one day, and as I came down the street, I saw a Mavic flying in the air, and I was like, where the hell's the pilot? And so I'm looking around, and I finally see where he's at, and I pull over, and of course he's got the shirt on, drone pilot,
yeah.
don't
Don't bother
interfere.
me.
And so I stayed back, and I just sat there and watched him. And after about 20 minutes, when he wasn't busy, he came over and was, introduced himself, and I introduced myself and told him that I flew, and we sat and talked for a bit. He was doing surveys of a tower
Oh,
there,
cool.
but he was doing surveys where he would put the drone over the top of it and shoot straight down and find the four corners, and they were doing measurements of the base from the
Nice.
drone. They were doing height measurements. They were doing inspections. I mean, it was this complete package of stuff that his
Wow.
business did. And I was so fascinated with the fact that he wasn't just going out and shooting a tower. He was going out and shooting a tower and then providing a bunch of extra data, a bunch of extra information. He could get the drone up, and he had the Mavic Pro Zoom, and he could shoot the serial number on the inside of the panels of each one of the reflectors for the tower, and was taking the information and building a database of the serial numbers for the devices that were on there. I was like, that is amazing. Wow. Because in the past, somebody would have to climb up there and do that manually.
Yep, that's right.
Which is dangerous.
And costly, too.
Yeah, and so I was blown away by that. And so doing the news, seeing all the things that people do, the medical industry, the agricultural industry, the inspection industry. Was it 400 AGL? Mel is out in California flying power lines right now, and making a killing, from what I understand, doing that. And there's just so many opportunities out there for those of us that have not only just the passion for flying these things, but the knowledge and the skill to fly these things. That you just don't want to miss out on it, because you know that if you wait a year, the market they'll be flooded. There'll be 400 teenagers that are coming out of college that got their Part 107 as part of their high school, drone class, and going into the industry, and those are the people that you're going to be going up against. So, I mean, it's. They're not kidding when they say that this is going to be a $27 billion industry in the next 4 years.
That's right. And
so,
plus, doing this show after watching Ken is a natural entertainer. And, I've done stand-up for 25 years. And so doing this is a piece of cake. I don't have to be funny all the time, but I could, kind of interject a little bit of humor here and there, and
you do a great show. I've watched lots of your episodes. You do a great show, and you do good videos, and the stuff that you have is fun and entertaining to watch, and that's the most important thing. Is you got to do what you love. I mean, because I'm always watching drone stuff.
Right.
I see all the streams, I see all of the live shows, I see all of the videos that people put out. My subscription list is growing, and I see all the videos that people do. I see some videos that I really question whether these people should be flying their drone at all.
Yeah.
Because I've seen videos of people flying over downtown cities, over traffic. Like present day videos.
Yep.
And it scares the daylights out of me, because I sit there and I think to myself, these people are representing the rest of us, and you see the near miss videos, you see the stuff that happens that makes the media kind of go crazy and want to drive us all into the ground. But then in the midst of all that, you come across a video that is just the most beautiful thing you've ever seen in your life, where the guy was at the perfect spot at the perfect time with the perfect lighting, with the perfect subject matter, and he flies beautifully, and you get this nice, beautiful scenic shot, and you think to yourself, that's the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yep. That's how.
Or God forbid, if I ever see it again, I will go nuts. Johnny FPV doing his dancing around cars thing, that Ken keeps throwing into my news. But I should never have given him that video. I really should never have given him that video. But it's stuff like that. I mean, that's where FPV is going. FPV has two directions right now. Race drones, because the racing league is getting national attention. They're going to be on like NBC, that kind of thing.
Yep.
But the other thing is stuff like Johnny FPV, where they're putting you in a completely different perspective on races
Right.
for cars, boats, whatever, and they can put you beside the car,
Mm-hmm.
flying around the car, following the car through turns in ways that no camera has ever been able to capture before.
Right.
The race industry, especially the drifting community and stuff like that, they see stuff like that. They're they're hooked on things like
Mm-hmm.
that. They want that
Mm-hmm.
pizzazz, you know.
Yep.
Um, Now my son, he's a huge fan of drift stuff.
Right.
I haven't quite gotten my head around it yet because I'm one of those people that figures if I'm going to go around a corner, I'm going to go wide and cut on the inside, and I'm going to fly around the corner real fast. Why I would drag my butt all the way around the thing, you know, smoking my tires the whole way, it doesn't make sense to me. But there's people out there that love it. It's adrenaline, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's fabulous. It's loud. It's crazy, and so
It's like
you know
those.
I.
Remember the big wheels. Remember when we used to do that? You know, the drifting with the big wheel
No,
where
that
you
was the green
go.
machine. No, that was the green machine. The green machine was the one that had the wheels that would caddy in the back, and you could crank the handles, and you know could do that nice little drift spin with them. That
Yeah.
was yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My neighbor across the street had a green machine. I
Yeah.
hated
My
him
my best
so much.
friend's my best friend's little brother had one, and he rode that until he wore out the front wheel because that was all plastic and it was hollow, and he just
Yeah, if you didn't have a big wheel with one flat section on that wheel
yeah.
at some point, you were not driving your big wheel right.
Yeah.
You had to grind that wheel flat on one spot so that it would thump 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 thump.
Yep.
You know. Uh oh, those are the days. And of course, back then we had banana seat bikes with the little bitty wheel in the front and the big
Mm-hmm.
fat wheel in the back,
Mm-hmm.
and you would
Yep.
specifically buy the bike so that it had the flat, slick tire,
Yep. That's
so
right.
that you could scream down the driveway, hit your brake, and leave that huge black mark all the way down the driveway, which would
Yep.
make your dad then turn red and chase you out of the house.
Yep.
Yeah, fun
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Good old days.
The good old days. Uh, so, how old are you, Jeff?
50 this
50.
year.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, I'm 9 years older than you are, and
You
so
don't look a day over 37, sir. I'm going to just tell you right now. You look like just a young whippersnapper.
well, thank
So
you. Thank you very much. And uh, thank God I got back into fishing a few years ago, and I lost a little bit of weight. I'm breathing better, feeling better. It gets me out of the house and active, and that's the nice thing about drone flying too, is it gets me outside, and just something about flying a drone that just kind of, you just feel one with the universe, so to speak. That kind of.
I will say this, and I mean this with all of the heart that I can share. When I see you and there was another gentleman that was a guest on uh, Thursday Night Live yesterday. He was
Oh,
the
Mike
video,
Roach.
yeah, Mike Roach. I've watched his channel too. The people like yourself that have an infirmity of some kind, right? That are out there flying these drones, and
Right.
you know, you did a video where you showed the amount of effort it took just for you to be able to go downstairs, get
Right.
set up, and to fly. And I mean, that's a lot of work,
Mm-hmm.
right? To go down and sit down and just enjoy flying your drone. I have an immense amount of respect for the dedication and the work that you do, so that when I see one of your videos, I know that behind the scenes on that, there's hours of
Right.
getting ready and getting into place and getting set up, and you know all of the work that you guys
Right.
have to do.
Mm-hmm.
When Mike put his video up and showed how he has to launch a drone,
Right.
I was dumbfounded.
Mm-hmm.
I sat there for the longest time just trying to imagine what I would do in a situation where I would have to use the tools to put the drone up, and it was just fascinating
Yep. Mm-hmm.
that even though he has an infirmity, even though he has this restriction of some kind, the simple fact that his passion to fly.
You can say
I don't want to say disabled. I don't want to be derogatory of any kind. The thing is that
disability. You could say he has a disability. His was an accident, and I had a birth defect, so I had this.
You guys are amazing. You guys are both amazing, and that's the reason why it's people like yourself that have the passion for this, that are in the community, that show the rest of us that it is all about fun. It is all about the pleasure and happiness of flying. I got into flying because the drone to me was going to be my ability to fly when I can't. I'm colorblind. I can't fly a plane.
Right.
But I want to fly. And so the first thing I did with my Phantom 4 or Phantom 3 was I went and got a pair of inexpensive little VR goggles I could slide the phone into. And I got the VR app or whatever that you can put on your phone to have the virtual reality sensation from this. And that's how I flew. I would sit out in the front yard and just skate around the neighborhood, and I loved it. When Ken came down and I got a chance to put on the DJI goggles, oh my God, that was amazing. I will be saving all of my quarters and pennies and dimes and nickels and anything else that I can find. There's one right there that I can find on my desk under the sofa that the kids steal from mom's purse, etc. That I can use to get myself a pair of DJI goggles, because these were great. They were on sale at Walmart for $3.95, and it comes with this really cool little tray that pops right out of there.
Right.
But it just doesn't have that same feel when you put the DJI goggles on.
Right.
You right. Like it takes up.
Yeah.
All of the data is right there in your face. Yeah. It's unbelievable. So, yeah, I Ken got me the bug on that one.
That's something else that I would like to get down the road. I do have some news that you don't have.
Okay.
I just saw Kelly from Ray Said Drone. Spin Up is on. They're taking reservations right now.
Yeah, I think I did see something about that. It's October 19th, if I'm not mistaken.
October 19th, yep.
Yeah.
Evidently, they got a place squared away, so they're already taking reservations, and I'm like, I gotta go to that thing.
I missed last year's, and I'm kicking myself because I really wanted to go. So I already have my little savings account set aside, that it just says, for drone use only.
Yeah.
And I'm going to throw all the funds that I need to in there so that I have the rental for the car. I'm in Texas. I'm in Austin. I'd love to say that I'm going to try to drive my Envoy to Austin, but right now that truck is lucky if it can make it just to the local town. Right. So get a nice rental car, something with air conditioning and a nice stereo, and kick back and just drive to Austin and go up there and hang out with everybody again. So, because when Ken and Chris came down for the shoot, the video shoot with the Splendora Police Department, it's the first time that he and I ever met face to face.
Wow.
And I have spent so many hours working with Ken, not only the show, but helping him out with his computer and other things that he does, that it felt just so natural to just hang out. It wasn't the first fear that I had was I was going to have that fanboy reaction. Oh my God, it's Ken, quick, but no, he's my friend, and I respect everything that he does and the work that he puts into it. I mean, if you guys ever knew the work that he puts into Thursday Night Live, you would give so much more credit to that show as to what he's able to pull together, because that is an intense amount of work, and
Mm-hmm.
he pulls it off and with panache and skill that
Mm-hmm.
it blows me away every single week
Mm-hmm.
what he's able to do next, and he keeps up in the bar.
Yeah, and when I came on his show, he sent me out his like his, so to speak, set list of how things are going to go, and I sort of have a set list here. Mine's generic, but I like to talk with my guests, get to let know them, and uh, I've had a lot of really interesting people on. I had Greg Cooner on. Mike Roach was on a few weeks ago. I'm still trying to get Ken on the show, so hopefully sometime in June we will have Ken Heron on this show. Just gotta nail him down. Next week we're having Michael from Philly Drone Life will be on. So
Awesome. That's a good guess. All right.
that'll be
Congrats.
interesting. For the love of God, it's freaking beautiful.
I love his videos. Oh my god. Yeah. No, it's that's the nice thing about this community, is that everybody comes out and helps each other.
Mhm.
I'll sit there and watch Ready Set Drone, and he'll have other YouTubers on. Chris will
Right.
have on different channels. It's nice to see everybody supporting each other in
Mhm.
this hobby and this industry. I'm just the news guy.
But you,
I got a nice
you're doing an awesome job, Jeff, and we love
I
you.
got a nice humble little channel,
Yeah.
with a couple of hundred users, and I make a video every so often when I don't have diapers and kids and school
Yeah.
and job and wife and mortgage, and um, I get a chance to put my news up, that I do with Ken. He gave me permission to put the streams up,
Cool.
um,
That's wonderful.
and the build videos. We're also very very exciting to do, and
Yeah,
I hope to
I
do more of those.
always look forward to watching those build videos. Those were interesting to see. Then you get to see a little bit of how the progress of the build on that project, and it just got me hooked. The way you explain how this works and what I'm going to do, and this part's broken, or that part's got something wrong. We got to do something, and all that, and we got to. Well, the engines are still good. Just kidding.
I will sit there and when you're working on these things, you're not thinking about the words. You're thinking about the next two things in
Yeah.
your head that you're trying to say or what you want to go. And so yeah, the engines thing came out because I probably have been working on the car too, and
Yeah, there
that
you go.
was what was on my mind. So um, but stay tuned to the channel. Like I said, this summer, in the coming months, you're going to see the Fabric build, and we're going to go through every iteration that I have to do on that. Which that's a lot of soldering, a lot of pre-work to be able to get everything set up for
Yeah,
that. So that's going to be interesting because I've never had to do a lot of pre-work before. It's always been fixing broken stuff.
right.
So this one's planning. That's
Mm-hmm.
going to be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I am going to document the work that I do on this little fella,
There you
and get
go.
this out of here and back in Ken's hands as quickly as I can.
Yeah, that
Um,
looks a little more extensive than the last repair job you did.
Surprisingly enough, this one is not as hard to fix as the original Herrenberg.
Wow.
The reason being is that the original Herrenberg didn't have a gimbal. The gimbal arm and all that stuff was completely obliterated. The only thing I had was
Really?
just the camera.
Right.
So I had to
Oh,
rebuild
that's
all of that.
right. That's
And
uh-huh.
I got the wrong parts. I had to get the right parts. Then I had to find pieces that they don't sell,
Right.
anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was that the Heron Bird was going to be a lot more intensive than this. This I have all the parts.
There you go.
So this one is just basically going through and trying to get it in the new frame and get it working right. Um, and it's just the only reason that I haven't gotten this one knocked out is because time.
Mm-hmm.
I've been so inundated now that the end of the school year is over and kids are going, off to their uncles for months
Right.
and months. I'll have a lot of free time to sit down and work on that without having a lot of interference because my 4-year-old is my drone buddy and
Mm-hmm.
everything that
There
I
you go.
do
Cool.
drone wise, Logan is there with me.
Mm-hmm.
Why he hasn't come tearing into this room knowing that all the drones are sitting out, I don't know. But but usually he does. So and he knows what drones are what. I mean, he knows that that's Ken's drone, and he knows that that's my drone, and he knows that this is Chris Rollins' drone. And it's
Nice.
never a case. If he sees me walking through the house where I'm going to go outside to fly, the first thing out of his mouth is, "Are you going to go fly the Rollins drone?" So
Awesome. And
yeah.
also, I want to let all of you folks that are watching out there, I do like chocolate. And if you want to send
Hey,
chocolate to me, send it to this address.
either
So,
that or some sweet candy.
yeah, there you go. Uh, that, or if you have broken drones, send it to that address. And if you just want to get a hold of me, and well, oh, that's the wrong one. Where did I put that one? No, no, that's the address. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Email. If you want to send me an email, here it is. Send me an email to that address if you want to be a guest on the show. Or I don't even know if people are hearing me, so I have no idea. So, uh, and also kind of like Ken, this is my version of the Laz. Let's see.
Oh, okay.
That's
That is
underwater water video, and I just changed the color a little bit, and you
that
can
is
see.
actually really very relaxing. Oddly enough,
Mm-hmm.
just keep waiting for a fish to go by.
That's my art mataz.
I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. Art Mataz. That's good.
And
Ken
with
will get
that.
you for a copyright infringement later on, but just
Yeah, but
well,
I'm Art Mataz, and this is real stuff. This is underwater footage from that little gadget that I made where I stuck the GoPro under a piece of wood. And if you look at my fishing videos, I've got one where you can actually see little fishies swimming around.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, and if you guys want to see some videos that are, I guess, just entertaining, just for practical purposes, you can always Google in the YouTubes for JAS Aerial. Those are my channel, and that's where it's got news streams, stuff from the builds that I've done, as well as just some videos that I shot around the area here that I found something that was interesting that I wanted to film. So,
Mm-hmm. All right. Someone in the chat says, "Oh, now I have to pee." I guess that just seeing that
yes,
water kind of, yeah.
yeah,
Wake me
we've
up before you go. Don't. Yeah, there you go.
yeah, it's
So,
just you need to have one of those cups, just sit there and dribble water, into a
there,
beaker.
there you
Half the
go.
audience is gone right there. Yeah.
All right. Well, Jeff, it was a blast having you on the show. I want to thank you for uh, spending time with us. Always enjoy seeing you on Ken's show. uh, thanks for coming in kind of like at a last moment because someone had a graduation they had to go to that was supposed to be on Friday, but then they moved it to Saturday. So, but
Checks in the
we'll,
mail, right?
yeah, that's
Checks
right.
in the mail. Wanted to make sure. Cash. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, always
Okay.
send
Okay. Yeah.
cash in the mail. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll send those Nigerian
No.
dollar
No.
bills.
We had a discussion about this. It has to be United States denominations and preferably anything over 20. So there you go. All right.
Okay. All right.
Always fun being on your show. So I appreciate the opportunity to come and share some of the craziness that I do and the little bit of the news and some of the backstory for things. I appreciate the opportunity. It was great. Enjoyed it.
All right. Well, thank you. Have a great evening and have a great Memorial Day weekend. So take care of those little kiddos and make sure they're fed and give them some of that sleepy time stuff, and then things will work out a little better for you.
Well, and also remember our veterans this Memorial Day
That's
weekend.
true.
That's the reason why we're there. So
Hmm.
pay respects.
Hmm. All right. Well, thank you very much. Catch you next Thursday. And all you folks out there, thanks for coming in and watching the show. Tell all your friends out there, please subscribe to my channel, and we'll get you some great content out there. So, catch you next Saturday. Bye bye.
Bye bye.